Right now at 6, a mother facing child neglect charges after authorities say her kids were left in deplorable conditions.
Autistic children have a tough life, and they need to be cared for.
Then, Oregon and National Guard members get the green light to go home. Plus,
I'm John Adams. Coming up, how law enforcement agencies plan to address burglaries in Multnomah County.
We do need help, and other retailers I know as well need help.
And later, how a neighborhood is rallying to save a community fridge that feeds anyone in need.
It might seem like a small thing, but it really is so grand.
But first, to breaking news at the White House, where President Trump has just signed a bill that compels the Justice Department to release all case files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This caps off years of efforts by survivors and a months-long bipartisan push that was, until this week, met with resistance by the president.
the legislation passed with overwhelming support in Congress, with only one House member voting against it. The Justice Department must now release all unclassified files within 30 days.
We'll keep you posted on this. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Christine Pitawanich. Developing tonight as well, a Portland mother faces child neglect charges after police say they found her children living in what could be described as horrific conditions.
Yeah, some of the details here may be difficult to hear. Devin Haskins is live outside the Multnomah County Justice Center, where that mom was set to appear before a judge. Devin?
Yeah, David and Christine, after police arrested that mom last Friday, she was booked into jail, then released and given a court date. Today was one of those court dates, yesterday as well. Both days, she failed to show up to those court dates. Police were originally called on Friday after responding to a welfare check. They arrested 32-year-old Ruby Godina Velador. Police said they were called after the mom's 9-year-old daughter called a family member saying her mom didn't pick her up from school. That family member then called police. And when police showed up to Velador's apartment, they said they walked into an overwhelming stench of feces, urine, and rotten food. They also saw feces smeared on the walls and trash piling up with flies all around. Another officer noted that the fridge and freezer doors had locks on them. Police say they found Velador's 11-year-old son, who's autistic and nonverbal, unclothed on the couch, watching videos on his phone. We also talked with a man who lives right below her apartment.
That's horrible. That's very horrible. You know, I'm a father. My children they're grown, but that's horrible. I never went into her apartment. I didn't know her that well. Can't imagine that happening to a child. That's terrible.
The woman has 2 children, that 11-year-old as well as that 9-year-old. It's unclear where both children are after the arrest of the mother. There is a warrant now for her arrest. Back to you.
Devin Haskins downtown. Thank you, Devin.
In an update, some Oregon National Guard troops will remain in limbo after the governor called for all of them to be demobilized.
Let's bring in Kyle Aboshi in the newsroom. Kyle, it sounds like this just changed again in the last few minutes. What do we know?
Indeed, things are changing quickly. So earlier today, Oregon's governor said she received verbal confirmation that all 200 members of the Oregon National Guard would be demobilized. But now, because of a court order from the Ninth Circuit, she clarified 100 troops remain activated. The troops were called up by the Trump administration in late September to help protect federal buildings, including the ICE facility in Portland, a focal point of protest. Half of Oregon's National Guard members, 100 troops, are already in the demobilization process, which involves health screening and administrative paperwork. Because it was a federalized mission, Guard members have to travel to Fort Hood, Texas, to demobilize. If it was an in-state mission ordered by the governor, they could be demobilized here. The process typically takes about a week. Throughout this mission, Oregon's Guard members were staged at Camp Rylea on the coast. They never actually hit the streets because a federal judge ruled the president had overstepped his authority by deploying the National Guard over the governor's objections. The Oregon Military Department estimated the cost of this mission roughly $16 million, paid for with federal tax dollars. Meanwhile, the legal fight over troop deployment to Oregon is certainly not over. The Ninth Circuit just issued an order temporarily allowing the federal government to keep control of the Oregon National Guard while it waits for the Supreme Court to rule in a connected case.
As always, appreciate you staying on top of these developments. Thank you, Kyle. In your headlines, a Portland man pleaded guilty today to arson at Portland's ICE facility. The U.S. Attorney's Office says on June 11th, Trenton Barker and others used large objects and debris to build a barricade in front of the facility's gate. Barker then lit a flare and threw it onto the pile, igniting it. Barker is charged with arson of a federal building and faces a max sentence of 20 years in prison, a $250,000 fine, and 3 years of supervised release. He'll be sentenced in March.
Governor Tina Kotek has signed the Community Safety Firearms Act into law, banning rapid-fire devices like bump stocks and forced reset triggers. The law creates new penalties for possessing, transporting, or manufacturing those devices. It also lets local governments and school boards restrict guns in certain public settings. It also sets a March 2026 start date for Measure 114, which mandates permits for guns and bans large-capacity magazines, though keep in mind that measure is still under review by the Oregon Supreme Court, which could change how or if it takes effect.
Scientists in Western Washington are debunking articles and social media posts claiming there's concerning seismic activity at Mount Rainier. They say that's not the case, and Mount Rainier's activity is normal. The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network says these false claims came after people misinterpreted data from one of their seismic stations on the mountain that's having technical issues.
So that antenna is trying to send the data, but it's trying to blast it through the coating of ice that's undoubtedly built up on the antenna. And it just doesn't have the power to get the signal out, so all we're seeing is basically noise at this point, not real data.
So they say any unusual seismic activity would be picked up by other stations on the mountain, which has not been the case. Matt?
All right, Christine, well, we know that snow and ice that coating is going to get even bigger and bigger as we go through time, but not in the near term. We really don't have a lot of precipitation coming our way, and certainly not up in the mountain. 41 degrees in Salem right now. Portland's about the same, and while we don't have rain yet, we will later tonight. It was cold this morning, though, because of the clearing sky last night. Vancouver and Hillsborough both dropped to freezing. 36 in Portland for our coldest morning of the fall. 32 even out of the coast at Tillamook. Now, speaking of the coast, you can see there's rain there. There's some rolling into the valley south of Salem right now. This will all be sweeping north and east, so it will be raining here probably about 9 o'clock, 9 to 10 o'clock, right in that time frame. As you can see, it's pretty broken up, so this isn't going to be a massive soaker, but the rain will come and go overnight and then transition into showers during the day tomorrow. So yes, we get some rain, but it dries out in the afternoon. It continues to be dry on Friday and Saturday. And the big question is, when do we get snow in the mountain? We'll dig into that a little bit later, guys.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Matt.
Developing tonight, law enforcement agencies in Multnomah County are teaming up to try to put a stop to burglaries that have been plaguing local businesses.
John Adams spoke with authorities today and joins us live in downtown Portland. John, what'd you find out?
Yeah, Christine and David, both Multnomah County District Attorney Nathan Vasquez and Portland Police Chief Bob Day agree that even though crime trends overall in the area are heading in the right direction, the number of burglaries is still way too high, and they hope the formation of a new task force will help address just that. Broken windows, stolen property, impacts to customers and workers. Business owners in Portland's downtown are all too familiar with the hardship burglaries can cause.
We have bars on our windows now. We have bars on our door. We have a doorbell that our customers ring to get into the store.
Eric Murfitt, the general manager of Mercantile Portland, says the 50-year-old family-run business has dealt with repeated burglaries in the past few years, including a major incident in 2020.
Over a dozen people came into our store and took merchandise and destroyed things for a total cost of $815,000.
Stories like this from area business owners is the motivation behind a newly announced countywide burglary task force. District Attorney Nathan Vasquez, along with other law enforcement leaders, discussed the task force Wednesday morning.
This is going to be a regional partnership that's going to bring together the law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, and investigative specialists, and will be working dedicated with businesses that are affected by this issue.
Portland Police Chief Bob Day says the city of Portland has seen 3,200 burglaries in the past year alone, and tells us the Bureau will be providing 1 sergeant and 3 investigators to the force. Day believes this is needed as organized burglary rings have become more sophisticated in recent years.
More advanced fencing operations, things moving online, more structured approach to these widespread theft efforts and break-ins, and that's why we need this more holistic, collaborative approach.
The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, Gresham PD, and the Port of Portland will also be providing law enforcement resources to the effort, with the task force meeting regularly to coordinate on cases, share information, and investigative strategies.
To the victims and the businesses, we're here to support you. To the criminals who would prey upon those businesses, I want you to know we're coming for you.
Well, both Vasquez and Day call this approach the future of policing, and they hope they will be able to target some of these larger crime rings that account for a number of the burglaries here in Multnomah County. Back to you.
John Adams reporting downtown tonight. Thank you, John.